Hey you. My thought for this week. No one gets a pass to be an arse. No one. Being old, being neurodivergent, being physically disabled, being afraid, being uneducated, being religious, being poor, being rich, being male, being stressed, being ill, being in a hurry, being president. None of these things gives you an automatic right to behave poorly, to inflict your unreasonable requirements on other people, or to essentially behave like an arse. Let me unpack that. What do I mean by being an arse, or a-hole, for people from different countries? I mean someone who is a competent individual who has agency and autonomy in their life, but who nevertheless behaves in such a way that they impose on, take advantage of, carelessly inconvenience without cause, insult, denigrate, or otherwise oppress anybody else, pretty much regardless of the reason for which they're doing it. In my opinion, the only human beings who can legitimately get away with any kind of unreasonable a-hole type behaviour on the regular is a child under the age of about 2, or someone who is currently not mentally competent in any way. And by that I mean somebody who is completely and utterly socially or personally unaware and is pretty much unable to function autonomously in any way. And not just someone who is mildly different or who is having a bad day. Seriously, if you are over, say, 3, there, I've given it a nice margin for error and for differing developmental speeds, and you've got the level of personal awareness, comprehension, and general self-control of something as sophisticated as, say, a golden retriever, let alone a functioning, communication-enabled human being, then you can, and you must, learn that certain behaviours are simply not acceptable. Sure, if you have severe special needs, then it might be very hard for you. Though that's absolutely not a given. There are plenty of people with severe special needs who are utterly delightful, who are kind and thoughtful people, lovely to be around. But yes, if you have severe special needs, it might be very hard. It might take more effort on behalf of helpers. It might take longer. It might take some form of adaptation to signal that something is not acceptable, but it can and it should be worked on. No one else should be required to endure the aggression or bad behaviour of anyone else. Compassion is 100% appropriate. Being a doormat is not. Now, we've all seen people out on the street, in the shops, in the workplace, or in the family, or even in our sacred institutions of power and governance, whose behaviour is quite frankly outrageous. The nasty bully, the person whose self-entitlement shines through everything they say and do, people who are rude, who steal and cheat and lie, people who are aggressive, who transgress any or every social norm, people who reserve their contempt, their insults, their bullying, or their oppression for certain subsections of the community. The bigot, the queue jumper, the judgmental nosy neighbour, the consummate user, the aggressor. They breeze through life causing chaos, leaving hurt and damage in their wake, while seemingly oblivious to the concept of treating others with decency and respect. They are arses. We know them and we hate them, and we should stop them. Don't fall for the paradox of tolerance, of which more in another video. Don't let people like that, who actively and deliberately transgress the rules of common, decent human behaviour, use the fact that other people do have manners or compassion or act with empathy. By behaving badly, they have forfeited the fundamental expectation that others will treat them well and to not respond negatively to them. Because we are not obliged to put up with this rubbish. There is a difference between being decent and being a doormat. There's an entire subreddit devoted to people asking whether they're being an arsehole, almost always in response to somebody else behaving like one. I read those things fascinated in a sort of schadenfreude attitude of gratitude that despite the many things in my life that drive me nuts, the many things that could be said to be really difficult to deal with, life could also be so much worse. I also suspect many of these stories are being completely fabricated, but that's another issue. But I read them, and sometimes I just gawp in amazement at the sheer effrontery and rudeness involved. It boggles my mind, and I am struck dumb. And then I remember that we all have encountered this obnoxious behaviour in some people. And I make myself remember, no matter their personal circumstances, no matter what's going on in their lives, no matter how much understanding and compassion we might have for them, it's still at the heart of it not okay. We hear these individuals when they're behaving badly, or they're apologists, trying to excuse the repeated obnoxious behaviour, whatever it is, to somehow make the problem about the victim and not the perpetrator. And you can hear and read it everywhere nowadays. It goes a bit like this. You can't blame him, her, because he's autistic. She has ADHD. He had a difficult childhood. She's stressed. He's not well. She's so busy. He is so important. It's the menopause. Their spouse left. They have trauma. And then they tell you, you need to understand, have more compassion, be reasonable. And here's the kicker. You have to be the bigger person. You have to let them get away with it because the reasons given are, it's not a big deal. It didn't cost much. It's only a little scratch. You'll survive. They have the right to express themselves. You can't take a joke. On and on. But that's just not good enough. I mean, obviously, I have empathy for the suddenly overwhelmed, and I might well give them a pass. Once, or maybe twice. But after that, I am going to just nope out of that shit, on principle. Because these stories, these behaviours, are so often not the once in a blue moon, it all got too much for me and I snapped, I'm really sorry, it won't happen again type of event. But the, my life is so hard, I am so powerful, special, me, and I'm going to take it out on you because I can type of thing. The repeated, ongoing pattern of getting away with whatever they can. And no, that shit has to stop. We've all been on both sides of the arsehole equation. It's part of the human condition. We are all selfish and thoughtless and occasionally rude. Or we just don't understand where someone else is coming from. We've all done it and we will all do it again. But the point is not to do it relentlessly. The point is to realise it, to stop when the damage we do is shown to us, to apologise and if possible make restitution, and then not to do it again. I'm not asking for perfection. Goodness knows I've been an arsehole to enough people in my time, but at least I strive not to be, most of the time. I am as capable as the next person of making an irritating noise, of not noticing that I've taken the last thing in the box, of inadvertently offending somebody, of being rude, or even, quite frankly, being well out of order. But only because I'm human and fallible, and not because I think I'm special, not because I think I should automatically get away with things that I would not let anyone else get away with, not because I am bigger, or stronger, or richer, or more privileged, or louder, or more capable of being a bully than anyone else. Or at least I hope not. So I say context is important, and it is appropriate to forgive, but not to keep forgiving the same thing. Empathy is good, but it must be reciprocal. Sharing is wonderful, but that's not the same as not having rights over your own stuff. Your right to express your freedom and to swing your arms around or do your thing stops when it negatively impacts me or others. All people are equal, and if you don't want me exercising power over you, then you don't get to exercise power over me. No. Care, consideration, generic decency, and dare I say it, basic manners are the essential elements of making life work in a species that evolved to live in groups of 150 to 250, but must now rub along in environments containing thousands or even millions. We know what good behaviour looks like. It's not doing to anyone else what we do not want them to do to us. We know what manners and compassion and respect look like, because we know what their lack looks like when we face it ourselves. If you really can't see the damage you do, or are unwilling to stop doing it, even when shown, even when tens or hundreds or even thousands of people are telling you loudly that what you're doing and what you're saying and how you are behaving is a problem, then you are, to all intents and purposes, a sociopath. And others have the right, and probably even the obligation, to protect themselves from you. Your neurodivergence, your sexual orientation, your religion, your power and your money are no excuse. Do not be a dick. No one gets a pass to be an arse. Till next time.